Hey guys, it's your old dad here again. Today we're going to learn how to make a basic plain tomato sauce. And we discovered that you need between 3 and 4 pounds of fresh tomatoes to make 1 pint, 1 jar of tomato sauce. And here we have on the front towel 2 piles, both weighed out to about 64 ounces. We're only going to make a couple jars today. Okay guys, over here in one half the sink I've got some of the tomatoes, alright, that we're going to use. They've all been washed. Got a bowl here with a bag for our trash, and another bowl I'm going to put the cut tomatoes in. I'm sure there's different methods to do this, but we're going to try it this way. I've been doing it this way, and we'll just see kind of how it goes from this point on. So, we need to cut out the core of the tomatoes. I'm going to cut out around here, turn it over, and cut again. Alright, make a slit and a slit. Then they're going to go into this bowl. So this is how we're going to do this. Just going to go down deep, and cut out that core. Okay. Turn this over, cut out the bottom part of the core that I didn't get. Alright. Now I'll deseed these. Now I'm scoring, but I'll deseed these a little later. But for right now, we're just worried about getting that center core out. And get the rest of the center core. The reason we score the bottom is we're going to put these into boiling water in just a little bit. By cutting through the skin like that, the skin in the boiling water is actually going to peel from these points outward. That way it'll be much easier for us to peel the tomato rather. Alright guys, there you have it. That took about 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes to go through what I say it was 64 ounces. For 1 jar, so we've got 128 ounces of cored tomatoes here. And basically, this is what you get. Like that, from the bottom. If you can see the splits here, you may not be able to, where I scored it both ways across the bottom, make 4 little slits. From this point on, they're going to go into the boiling water. Once the water starts to boil, I'll put them in. And it takes about a minute, sometimes up to 2 minutes, depending on how thick that tomato is for that skin to start to peel. Alright, now this is what we're looking for right here. We can make this out over the steam. You can see that the skin is peeling off at the scores that we made at the bottom, and from this point these will go right into the cold water. Okay, this is what we're talking about. We got it in cold water now. They're going to sit in here just 3 or 4 minutes. But you can kind of get a little better picture there of the skin sloughing off. Once again, we're just cooling these off so we can handle them and get the rest of that skin off of them. Okay guys, this is the messy part of this. We'll get in here, get our tomatoes out, and we've got our waste part here. And this is where we do the peeling. And for the most part, the skin comes off pretty easily. We want the skin off because the skin won't break down. And some of them have little bug bites, divots, whatever you want to call it. And here also, at this point, I try and get some of these seeds out. Okay? I guess you could be real anal about it and get every seed out, but the seeds don't bother me that much. And so we're going to do this with all the tomatoes. And you can see basically how easily the skin's coming off. And we've got a few good ones here that aren't giving us a problem, but there are those too that kind of make life difficult, right, to get the skin off and get all the seeds out. Now, I'll be honest, some of these I could have probably left in the cold water a little bit longer, because not until you get to the inside do you see that a little bit warm. Not terribly warm, but enough for you to tell the difference. And once again, you can see we've got some bug bites out here on the outside of that skin. We peel that off, but nothing's affected on the inside. Okay. So, came off pretty good. I'll squeeze some of these seeds out. Any juice that might be falling down into this, we're going to strain out later. You don't have to. I've done it both ways. And put it in the pot when you cook it. And that way, my feelings are you don't lose any of the flavor. Now this one's a little tougher here to get the skin off. And if you do miss some skin, you try to get most of it, of course, but if you do miss some, you'll see it cooking in the pot. And you can just take your ladle, or fork, or whatever, and get down in there and get that out of there. So, it's not perfectly seeded, but good enough for government use, right? Okay. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, when you're putting the tomatoes into the cold water in the sink or a tub or whatever you're doing it with, keep in mind that since the tomatoes are boiling hot, they go into the water's going to get a little warmer as you go. It's a good idea to add some fresh cold water, or like I do, I simply just get my bag of ice and toss a little more ice in while some are boiling. And that way it gets good and cold by the time they're ready to come out and go into the water. Alright guys, now we've got our pot of tomato pieces and sauce. Okay, we're going to put this into our pot to cook this down. And so far, since we first started this, we're an hour and 20 minutes into it already, to give you some idea of the time involved. And we're looking at least a couple hours cooking right here on top of the stove. We're going to cook this at medium heat. Okay, and guys, remember to stir your sauce, or what's going to be sauce, every so often. Alright, you don't want to stick it to the bottom of the pot. You can see here we have some pretty good sized chunks. I've already broken some of it up by hand before I put it into the pot. But it's going to cook down, and don't be afraid that it's not going to be chunky by the time it cooks down into an actual sauce. This stuff actually turns out to be pretty thick and chunky. I've got several jars made already, and each and every one of them is some really thick sauce. Good tasting too. Now we're not adding anything to this pot at this point. We're not going to add anything to this pot, as a matter of fact. No lemon juice, no salt, anything. Okay, no citric acid. That's all going to be done later when we actually get ready to put this stuff in canning jars. Alright, so we're going to let this go for at least another hour and a half, 2 hours, and see what we get. Okay guys, what we've got here is a 1 pint canning jar, a Ball canning jar. There's all different companies that make these canning jars. I prefer Ball because I've used them for a long time. Alright, pretty durable to last for years. This is going to go into a pot of water. Our canning jars, the lids and the rings as they're called, need to be sterilized. After all, we're putting a food product in these jars. We recommend you always start out with new jars. Make sure the jars are completely submerged underwater. Turn the heat on, let it come to a boil. Once we've got a boil, what we're going to do is we are going to let it boil for about 10-15 minutes. I guess 15 would be a safe bet. 10 they say is the minimum. I've always done about 15. And then we're going to turn the heat off, take these jars out, and put them to an area by themselves to dry. They're going to be very hot, so you're going to need tongs, okay, to lift these out of the water. And then we're going to put them on a towel. We're going to fold that towel up at least 4 times over. Okay, so we've got a 4 towel thickness. Because, and I can show you evidence of what a hot canning jar does to the top of a wood table. Anyways, so we're going to get this stuff started, and in a little while we'll have this off and we'll show you exactly what to do with this. Okay guys, we've got 15 minutes of boil time here, and we're going to get these jars, lids and rings out and onto a towel so they can cool down dry a little bit. Now, like I've mentioned before, you need tongs. These are very old tongs. As a matter of fact, I think these were the ones my mother gave me years ago. They make them now with rubber grips, which would really be nice. Okay. But these have held up for God who knows how many years. Okay, I'm going to take this to the table and set it down. And let's get the other one out of here. Be careful not to stick your hand into the boiling water, of course, trying to get the jar out. Drain hand. And we'll get the rings. And try to get the rings. And now the lids. This is the tricky part because these things are flat. Oh, that water is very, very hot. Okay, I think I put just a little deep. Let's see if we can't improvise here. You've got to stand them up on their edge in the water to be able to grab them. And the last one, and let's hope. I should have done this earlier. But hey, you know, we all have an absence of mind sometimes. Alright, and that's it. Now we're going to let this cool off, and our sauce is done. And we've only been into it a little over an hour and a half. Now, part of what kind of hurried this up this time, as you've probably seen and wondered what was going on with this, the potato masher, is as it's cooking, as it starts to cook down, probably about a third of what it was, is about the time I start mashing that up. So it's not quite as chunky. We've still got chunky here, but at least there's no large discernible tomato pieces. Alright, so the next step is we're going to take that sauce and we're going to fill those jars. We're also going to use the same water. If this was cold water, if we fill the pot with cold water to put the jars in after the sauce goes in, because after the sauce goes in, we feel Alright boys, here's the jars now, and we've got our rings and our lids on the towel like I explained earlier, and I don't want to touch these with bare hands because these are clean, alright, and they're going to get sterilized again when the whole jars get cooked in sauce. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of towel, and I would do the same if it was just on the bare wood. It just so happens this was convenient, because I've still got all these tomatoes on here, and of course more to pick, and I don't know what to do with these things here. But anyways, after these cool down a little bit, we're going to put the sauce in, put them back into the water, and we're going to boil the jars with the sauce for another 30 minutes. So, we'll give just a little bit, and we'll show you how that is all done also. Okay guys, what we've got now, we've got everything we need to finally put some sauce into these jars. So as you can see, we've got our sauce or hot water still left over from when we sterilized those jars. I've got a pouring cup, I've got my ladle, here's my jars, and I've got my two lids over here with the rings, which you probably can't see in the picture. One very important thing, we kind of just raised on it earlier, is that we spoke about citric acid, lemon juice, and such. You can also use apple cider vinegar to add acidity to prevent botulism. From what I've been able to find out, if you add apple cider vinegar, you want it to be at least 5%. But that, over a period of months, tends to give the sauce a little bit of a robust flavor, as they say, which sounds good. But this is the basic sauce that somebody can take home, heat up, put in their own ingredients and flavor, to taste. And lemon juice tends to bring out the real zest, bite, bitterness of tomato sauce. If any of you's ever been bothered by, the acidity of tomatoes, throwing in some extra lemon juice will do it right away. The best thing to use, and it's commercial here, I've got some Ball, of course, citric acid, and this takes the place of the vinegar and the lemon juice, which is commonly used more so than lemon juice is. But this adds no flavor whatsoever. So what you've got in the pot will taste the way it is. Okay. So this is to be put in now, okay? Not for cooking, not during cooking. This is the point that you add the citric acid, and you use a quarter teaspoon. Okay. So 1/4 teaspoon goes in the bottom of the jars. Okay. And then, once the sauce is in, we're going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt on top. So, this thing here, whatever it's called, makes it real convenient to pour the sauce into the jars. Okay. So we don't want a bunch of food products slopped on outside of the jars, especially up by the lid. Okay. So just pour that in. Leave a 1/2 inch to 1 inch from the top, because this stuff is going to be boiled again. Got a little sloppy there, so I'm going to have to clean that off with a paper towel. And I'm beginning to wonder if I'm going to get pull 2 jars out of this. It's kind of questionable. I'm going to have to make myself a couple partial jars. And we'll see what we get here. Can't tell, this is fairly chunky stuff. I think we're pretty close. And just because I happen to like things even, we'll take a little from one, put in the other. Now this one jar, I have a little food slop there around the ring. The outside is where the main concern is. So what I'm going to do is get myself a paper towel, clean that. Because what if there's compromise with the seal, where the ring itself clamps down the jar? That can be a problem as far as bacteria. We don't want that. Especially, once again, the outside. Want to dampen the towel a little bit. Always do this. That's a good idea. Wipe that outside. Now, get our quarter teaspoon of salt. Some people say salt is optional, but salt is also preservative. This stuff is going to cook again, actually. I've mentioned that a few times. It's going to cook again in the pot here. And everything on the bottom and everything on the top that I added, right, the citric acid and the salt, is all going to mix in. Right? So, some say loose, but we're going to make sure that the water level, there we go, is above the jars. Recommended as 1 inch to 2 inches. And once again, remember, that water is still fairly warm. Yeah. Oh God, okay, twice in one day, right? You know, you don't have to be a genius to make this stuff, obviously. What can I say? Alright, I'm going to add just a little bit more water and bring that to a boil. Once it's boiling, I'm going to let it cook for 30 minutes. And then we'll pull the jars out. Okay guys, it's been 30 minutes, maybe 35. And it's time to get these jars out of this water. Yeah, we're going to try not to get burnt this time. We'll see how that goes. Now this is where the tongs with rubber grips will come in handy, because I'm not able to put this up into a jar, lift it out. I have to grab it by the very top. Now sometimes when you take these straight out of the water, instant change in temperature, you'll hear a pop. That's the seal. Okay, the lid itself is going in a concave type motion and it's sealing. Well, sometimes it can take up to 12 to 24 hours for that to happen. Alright, and our next one. Get that to the table. Okay, and that's all there is to that. And we'll let those set and cool. We'll check about this time tomorrow night and make sure that when I press on the top of the lid that it doesn't press in. As a matter of fact, I've got a jar up here and I can show you about checking the seal of that. If you can see this, a little calcium buildup since it's already been cooked. But I can press in on the lid and I can feel it give. I don't know if you can see my finger giving there. But when I've got a good seal, I'll press down and it won't go anywhere. It'll just be solid all the way across. It won't pop back. It'll just stay in one place. Alright, let's give it a day and see what happens. Okay, and here's our jars. Okay, the ones we just pulled out. And if you look real close, you probably won't be able to see it on camera. These things are actually boiling inside. You see the air bubbles rising to the top. We've already had one pop. I don't know if you can see that or not. So we know that they got good and hot. Anyways, from start to finish, it is 10 after 7 in the evening. We started this at 3 o'clock this afternoon. So right now we're a little over 4 hours into this. Probably exactly 4 hours. This was all without breaks, except for about 10 minutes to let these jars cool when we first pulled them out of the pot. We let them cool here empty on the towel. And actually that went a lot quicker than it usually does, because the total cook time for the sauce today was about an hour and a half, maybe a little bit over. Okay, usually I expect 2 to 3 hours, but today it did a little better. Maybe I had to heat it just a tad higher than I usually do. Either way, as you can see, it's a time-consuming venture, and it'll take up a good part of the afternoon. All right, so we'll get back with you tomorrow and see what we've got.